Jason, I want to tell everybody that this is Dr. Beck's first time on the radio, and I didn't know you had a stutter, and you are very brave to come on the radio if you have a stutter.
It's like the King's Speech. The only way to get past it is to get past it, right?
Did you grow up in Arkansas?
I did, born and raised here.
Where? In Little Rock?
Little Rock.
And your daddy was a software engineer? Must have been very far back.
Well, he was back when PCs first came about. And
when they were mainframe?
Yes, actually, when he started his company, everything was on a mainframe. And he had not trained in software, but had an idea for software that he wanted to make. And so hired software architects to engineer that for him.
How do you even know about that?
He was in the insurance industry and just came up with an idea on how to provide a better service in that industry. And actually, his office was right here in this building.
In the Plaza West building that we're in right now?
Yes, a couple floors down. So when I was a kid, I would come up to this building and go to my dad's office, which was half of this floor. And that's where he did it out of.
And a mainframe is pretty big.
It is. It takes up an entire room.
Your uncle made the device that debones chickens.
My grandfather, actually.
Your grandfather.
Yes.
So that we now have chicken McNuggets.
Right. Yep. He was the one that brought that technology over from overseas to the United States.
Did he learn it in the war?
No, he just saw an opportunity and heard about it and realized that it didn't exist here yet, and went over and found it and brought it here.
Life-work balance is extremely important today. When I started Arkansas Flag and Banner 40 years ago, people wanted a base salary, and they wanted to know every month exactly how much money they were going to make. Then it went to they wanted to have some flexibility, and so they went to hourly. And then now, when people come in and apply for jobs with me, one of the things they ask about is life-work balance. That was never a conversation 30 years ago.
Right, and I think that's a new thing that we know now, that that life-work balance is what keeps people happy and healthy throughout their life. And so, unfortunately, through the process of medical training, we go through many, many years where we're working way more than we need to work. They actually had to make a rule, I don't know, it's about the time I finished training, where they could not work more than 80 hours a week because everybody was working more than 80 hours a week, and they didn't feel like that was healthy. And so now the residents only work 80 hours a week.
I still don't think that's healthy. I don't feel like the care you get is that good. Now, I know they can sleep there at the hospital. Is that considered part of their 80 hours?
It is not.
You are awake for 80 hours a week. And I had a brother-in-law who was a doctor, and he did not look well.
It's definitely taxing.
And I promise you he was not given as good a care as he should have been. Why did they do that?
I think part of it is trying to fit all of the training into those number of years. It just requires kind of double duty to get everything in that you need to know to take care of patients well when you get done.
I don't know how you can remember anything. There's something called the grandmother effect on children.
Which makes complete sense to me. I mean, I don't think there's anybody better equipped to contribute to a child's life than their grandparents, right? They've got all the time in the world. They've got the resources. They've got the life wisdom. So, I mean, it's almost bringing a tear to my eye because, like, my little girl goes down in my mom's garden, right, every day with her, and it's just a wonderful experience for all of them. And so, yep, absolutely, it's very important.
It really is. And my grandkids, I tell people all the time when they have children, I said, well, you're really just having the children so that you can one day have grandchildren.
That's right.
Because that's really all you want. When we come back. I love being a grandmother so much. I'm with you. I love being a grandmother. And so much nicer to my grandkids.
Yes, she is.
I know, right? Well, then, as parents have to be the disciplinarian. They got to do all
they're
that stuff.
driving you nuts.
Yeah,
They're getting on your middle nerve. I'm going to cry with you. I made a garden. I thought, Evelyn's just going to love this garden. We grew these little seeds in the house, Megan's daughter. And she was like, that's interesting. We get out there to plant, and she's like, dirt? No dirt, no dirt. Anyway, then the next business you started in 2010 was Onsite Imaging Solution. Again, I think you saw a niche.
Correct. And this one was inspired by my mother, actually. She's a PhD nursing researcher and spent her career learning how to take care of elderly patients better. And my sister and I, through some exposure to the nursing home environment, recognized that there was a big need nationwide for a different and better level of care in those nursing homes, particularly when it came to imaging. So what was happening was patients were, say somebody fell and they thought they broke their hip, they would put them in an ambulance, take them to the hospital, x-ray them, realize it wasn't broken, they'd take them back. And now these patients, you know, they have things called like sundowning, where they get out of their normal environment and they struggle. And so what we did was, around the country, those x-rays normally took 2 or 3 or 4 days to get done and get the reports back. And so what I did was figured out a way to basically make that happen in 15 minutes. And so I basically aggregated a bunch of technologies that already existed, using cellular broadband, voice recognition software, cloud-based computing, and put them together to make a system where we were able to get images done and reports back quicker than anybody else could do it. And so we started that company, and within 2 years had most of the market in the state. And I say I started that with my sister as well. So, yes.
So you go to the nursing homes and you can you can perform the necessary tests there.
Correct, right there on site. And then the image data is actually uploaded through a cellular broadband connection to a cloud computer system that I read from, and then use voice recognition to dictate the reports that are immediately sent back. We developed iPhone apps so that the ordering doctors could see everything right there on their phone and right when they came back and everything. So
thank you, Dad. Does Dad help you with that?
My dad?
Yeah.
He helped early on, mainly more in the mechanical side of things, because we had to kind of invent how to put these machines in the back of vans. The digital machines had not been done before, and so he helped kind of engineer some of that.
I bet your family dinners are so interesting.
They are.
I think I bet anybody that marries into your family just feels so intimidated. They're like, I'm not going to talk because I'm going to sound stupid. David Bootner, that we're talking about, who kind of founded the Blue Zone, this is his quote: "The calculus of aging offers us 2 options. We can live a shorter life with many more years of disability, or we can live the longest possible life with the fewest bad years. As my centenarian friends showed me, the choice is largely up to us." So we're talking today about how to do that. And I never heard of the Blue Zone till I started this interview today. And the Blue Zone, tell everybody what the Blue Zone is and about the man who started it.
Sure. The Blue Zone's concept was by Dan Buettner. He basically traveled around the world and identified the places where people led the longest, healthiest, happiest lives, and looked at the common characteristics of what those people that lived in those places did, right? And the idea is you want to like live until you die, right? And so in the United States here, people kind of live until their 60s, and then they're going to the doctor every week, and they got a bag of medications they carry around with them, and they don't feel good, and they just taper from there, right? Whereas in these other areas of the world, people are living vibrantly into their 80s, 90s, 100, right?
And then so, most of them die in their sleep.
Yes.
Which is the way everybody wants to go.
Right. You want to like live long and die short, right?
Yes.
And so basically what he did, which makes complete sense, is let's just look at some of the characteristics of how these people live, and let's see if we can see what the common threads are and apply those to our life, right? And so some of the common threads that he saw were a predominantly plant-based diet.
Meat only like once a week.
Meat is a celebration, very small portions.
3 or 4 ounces once a week.
Correct. Yes. A lot of natural movement, a lot of good social support, living in close contact with loved ones.
Sense of purpose.
Sense of purpose is very important.
And they don't even have a word for retirement.
They do not, most of them. And the ability to downshift every day at the end of the day is one of the key things, and that's where
reduce your stress through a daily ritual.
Right. And whether you do it, by stopping and having a glass of red wine, or whether you do it by going and doing something that you enjoy doing with friends, it's that key, I believe, is to downshift in of every day and remove kind of the stress from the day and move on into your pleasant evening. And those are just some of the characteristics that carried through all of those cultures.
Prayer, meditation,
Correct.
Walk in the woods. or at least I do. I'm like, oh, downtime. I can't have any downtime. I liked the 80% rule.
Yes, eat till you're 80% full.
That
Very
was
good rule.
A great rule.
Right. And I think, sitting down to a meal, we pray oftentimes, but I think you can also, in addition to praying, give some consciousness to the food that you're eating, where it came from, how it was prepared. And I think when you stop and do that, you're much less inclined to kind of overeat, right? You eat in a much more conscious way. And so it's easier to, appreciate the food that you're getting, eat till you're comfortably full, and stop.
And the 80% rule is because it takes 20% for you to feel the food it takes 20 minutes for you to feel the food you ate.
Correct.
To get full. So if you eat till you're 80% full, you are actually 100% full within 20 minutes because it gives it time to go register to your brain that you're full. And they have smaller plates in most of these countries.
They do.
I think that's a really simple solution or exercise that all of us can do is eat on a smaller plate.
It makes your food look like it's bigger.
I've never thought about giving thought and gratitude to my food, but I'm going to start doing that. I believe giving gratitude is one of the examples they use for reducing stress is a daily ritual of gratitude. Kind of listing, thank you for being born in America.
Absolutely.
I mean, does anyone ever give a gratitude for that one? And that's a big one. Especially when I watch the news, I'm like, oh, God, I'm glad I'm not having to cross the border right now. The diet, eat lots of beans.
Yes, beans are actually a common thread among the blue zones. And we know...
I don't like beans that much. I mean, they're okay. But aren't there a lot of varieties?
Oh, there's hundreds of varieties of beans.
So maybe I just haven't tried them all. Because I only think of the 5 beans that are in the grocery store in the cans.
Right. So even at Walmart, they've got probably 20 or 30 kinds dry.
Really?
Some beans you might have never heard of right there on the Supercenter aisles.
Walmart knows. Clubs and it said another one was belonging to a faith-based organization, and it doesn't matter what it is. I mean, it can be AA. It can be a club or an organization or even a book club, but having that connection of being in a club and having friendships.
Right.
And then another was family, caring for another person.
Very important. It goes back to that sense of purpose. And I think, in the United States now, people tend to be very separated from their families oftentimes. There's other countries in the world that actually give you tax breaks if you live close to your parents, right? And,
you don't get a tax break, Gray. He lives in the backyard.
Gee, thanks, Mom.
Well, and I actually live next door to my parents and my sister as well. And so we have our own little village, if you will, which is wonderful for raising children and
it's great.
Social support and support when you're having troubled times and everything else. It's just a wonderful way to live. Some people see it in this American culture as kind of odd.
I think so too. Our family has actually talked about that. Why would you not want to stay with your tribe and support yourself as a tribe?
Agreed completely.
And it only changed like in the 50s. Somewhere around the 60s or 50s, everything began to be like, kick your kids out of the house and put your parents in an old folks' home. And
right, and most other cultures in the world still live that way. And even people who have immigrated here to the United States from these other cultures oftentimes still live that way. I think we need to look to them to set an example of what we should go back to.
I agree.
Rather than progressing forward of more isolation, more separation. Those are things that don't promote health and healing and happy life.
Dr. Beck, we're down to the wire. I could talk to you all day. This is for you. It came from Arkansas Flag and Banner. It's to Dr. Jason Beck. It's a nurse, and here she sings. I'll be there. Stop. I'll be there. That's what a Dr. Beck's going to be for all of his
Thank you very much.
We told her not to play it on the radio.
I couldn't help it. It's good. Thanks again for coming. I want to say to our listeners, thanks for joining us today. If you have a great entrepreneurial story you'd like to share, send a brief bio or your contact info to Kerry at flagandbanner.com. Thank you all for spending time with us. We hope you've heard or learned something that's been inspiring or enlightening, and that whatever it is, will help you up your business, your independence, or your life. I'm Kerry McCoy, and I'll see you next time on Up in Your Business. Until then, be brave and keep it up.